Happy Saturday there, THL. Welcome to another edition of Salty Saturday. I am Donde, and I am pleased to be bringing you two matches tonight with the one, the only, Markshire. How's it going tonight, Markshire?
It is going great, Donde. I am glad to be back in the cast. I think I'm averaging about one show per season now, so hoping to keep that trend up tonight. Maybe even get it up in the future.
Yeah, well, let's hope for 10 games tonight then to get maximum Markshire out of our lives
Yeah.
here. Because this is exactly what I wanted to hear. That you're excited tonight, because I'm excited. We have two matches, both in the same series, both in the same game. Due Process versus Tap Last, and to make matters even more exciting, right now it's 8-5 with 3 matches played. So these are the final 2 matches in this series to be played. I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. Due Process has been a fantastic upstart team. Tap Last has been a solid team that we knew that they were going into the season. So this is a big one.
Absolutely, and these teams are right next to each other in the standings. I think started this week, only 4 or 5 points were separating them, but if you look on the pro page, you'll see them right next to each other. So the series overall is going to be in a much better spot in the standings going. But like you said earlier, Tap Last is up 8-5. So if either Tues or Tyfoon gets the win tonight, that will lock up the series. Due Process is going to have to win both of these matches if they want to take the overall week.
That's right, and as you did mention, they are within 5 points of one another. Tap Last being on the positive side of that, so Due Process would really need to make a huge swing here in these two last games to pass Tap Last. Because even if this ends up being like a 14-13 win for Due Process, Tap Last will still maintain that standings lead. So it's got to be a big one here. We're gonna have to see Goose and ItsMeMikeV pull out all the stops, and they just might do that, but. Why don't we take a look at the decks for the first match tonight, which is going to be Tues versus Goose, and see if we can, kind of make sense of the brings and who we think is going to come out on top here. So the first thing, I'm going to pop this up on screen here, that everyone is going to see, will be the deck lists for the two players. And on the left, you will see Tues' deck. On the right, you'll see Goose's deck. Decks, because there's 4 of them. And it should be noted that both players have already submitted their bans. They're both banning Warrior. So Goose's decks, Tues' decks on the left there, the Druid, the Priest, and the Warlock will be played. And then on the right, Goose's decks, we'll see Demon Hunter, Hunter, and Paladin. So we're going to see 6 classes tonight, which is great. Which, this is the anti-mirror match, which later on you will find amusing because of just how much of a mirror the next one is. But, Markshire, what's your overall impressions here of the lists, and do you think this gives either player an edge?
Yeah, so looking at this, and I don't think you have the matchup chart on screen yet, but that'll come later.
Just a second.
But just looking at it over, it seems that Goose has a pretty significant edge. And looking at Tues' decks, when I first saw this Druid at first glance, I thought it was a spell druid, but as you look closer, it appears to be a Malygos druid, and to be honest, that is not an archetype that I have played yet in this meta. Not sure about the lists for that, and even though we have HS replay and VS data for matchups, I'm not too familiar with the matchups for that either. But other than that, the other lists seem pretty standard. Pretty normal Gala Priest, the Bomb Warrior that of course got banned, and then the Quest Warlock, which is just really become the hot deck in these past couple of weeks, and I actually think that everyone except Goose tonight ended up bringing that Quest War. But looking at the matchups overall, Tues is in a pretty rough spot, and I actually think he only has maybe 1 or 2 actual favored matchups. Goose sort of punished some of these slower decks like this, Malygos Druid, the Galakron Priest, and the Quest Warlock by bringing stuff Demon Hunter and a very low curve Dragon Hunter, Murloc Paladin, which is a deck that we haven't seen that much in THL. Paladin and Shaman are kind of at the bottom of the barrel as far as deck selection goes, but this Murloc Paladin looks to have very strong matchups across the board. So from what we can see now, it looks like this Paladin bring will pay off.
Yeah, and as you were talking there, I did put the matchup chart on screen so everyone could see.
Great.
And as you mentioned, yes, it is very, very skewed in favor of Goose. The decks on the left are Tues, the decks on the top are Goose. So those red numbers there are the uphill fight that Tues is going to have to climb tonight, with the exception of Quest Warlock versus Murloc Paladin. He is unfavored in every single match. Though, and I must say, a man after my own heart with the Murloc Paladin, as I have an unnatural love for that. But we did see the Dragon Hunter struggle a little bit this afternoon. If you happen to catch Schoolstone, Saku was unable to pick up a W with that. So we'll see if Goose has any better luck with it. So, yeah, not much else to say. But I think we should just let these players go, get some games going here tonight.
Absolutely. Do you know if the players are ready, Donde?
They are waiting right now, so I'm going to let them know they're good to go.
Sweet.
And for the viewers and for you as well, Markshire, we will have Goose on the bottom, Tues on the top.
Awesome.
And that was primarily decided by the fact that when I stream opt last week, Due Process was also on the bottom, and I had to change fewer things.
Yep, that's optimize the process, less manual things for you to move around. Always what.
It is all about operational efficiency here at THL. They are jumping in, so we are jumping in. I'm waiting for the first spec to load. And I promise I'm going to switch that screen.
And luckily, I am already in a little bit faster than your screen, Donde. So I'll go ahead and describe. We've got Goose on the Dragon Hunter to start against Tues on the Quest Warlock. And again, from the matchup chart, let's see, that is a 60% favorite about for the Dragon Hunter. So pretty solid matchup for Goose here. Tues is really going to be looking for cards like Nether Coil, really going to be looking for his heal to withstand some of the early pressure and end up being able to get into the late.
Yeah, I think part of the tough answers here for Tues will be how does he answer the untargetable minions like the evasive Feywing that Goose is going to have. You can't hit that with a Nether Breath, so you're going to have to find other ways, put bodies in front of it to stop it from hitting you repeatedly. And we see that Goose curved kind of nice right out of the gate with a Dwarven Sharpshooter into a Phase Stalker.
Yeah, I mean that 1-2-3 is what you want to see here. Goose off to a very ready. And Tues' hand is looking really clunky. It's nice that he has the Questing Explorer on 2, but not much else so far for his hand. And now we see Goose with 3 mana here. He could opt to just go for the Frozen Shadow Reaver again, freeze the 2/3, and just continue to expand his.
Yeah, he has to, make sure he's playing around that Netherwing that we see in Tues' hand, of course, and anything that's 2 health is very vulnerable to that. But he has to balance that with continuing to push the issue. We've already seen a Broodmother go to hand for Tues right now, so that's 1 less heal that he will have until he finds Plot Twist, which he's still digging for at the moment.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's fine now because, again, you can be reasonably confident that the Shadow Reaver is going to get to hit face at least once, because Netherwing, even with the coin, is still another turn away. But maybe now we might see Goose go with a more passive play, trying to clear the board some, get some value on the board. So, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, he'll use the Sharpshooter, changing his hero power to target that Questing Explorer and get one of the explosive traps out of the deck. He unfortunately has the other in his hand, but he's just gonna go all in right now and make a big wide board. But that's gonna probably force out this Netherwing as an answer right here with the coin.
I'm a little surprised to see the full commit with the Battle Mage and the Sharpshooter. If you think your opponent doesn't have Netherwing, it makes a lot of sense, but Goose doesn't have a ton to do after this Netherwing will inevitably come down right here.
Yeah, there was no real indication based on how he had played the first few turns that he didn't have it. I guess the question would have been, does he have an activator for it as well? Which he does. He had Malagos in hand. And like you said, I think he could have easily just maybe played 1 minion there, maybe just the Battle Mage, and not committed fully, because now he's kind of in a rough spot hand-wise.
Definitely. But, I mean, the counter argument to that is the Battle Mage and the Sharpshooter aren't doing a ton in hand when it's not in the early game. It wouldn't have been great to just play them out now either. So it's not a huge loss that they got caught up in that Netherwing battle cry. And Goose is not in the worst spot here because he does have access to Dragonbane Hero Power, which could potentially do a lot of face damage.
Yeah, and this is a tough situation here, too, for Tues. Obviously, he's starting to run out of health. He hasn't found the plot twist yet. He's really, really trying to find a way to stabilize before this game just ends very, very quickly, and he can't do anything that drives towards his game plan. He's only on 7 out of 20 at the moment. And now he's got a problem where he knows that there's an explosive trap. I believe that's the only secrets in Goose's deck, correct? The 2 explosive traps?
Yes, I believe so.
So he knows this is an explosive trap, which means if he attacks face, he takes even more damage. If he attacks the 2/3, his 5/5 dies. So either way, it's not really ideal for him.
It's tough, and this is one of the issues that Quest Warlock can run into, is they end up being pretty dependent on drawing plot twist to end up completing the quest and also just, get new cards in their hand. Tap and then do nothing is just not what you want to do on turn 5. And now this is going to be 7 damage coming in on Tues' face, putting him to 5.
Yeah, and Tues is probably looking to play the Abyssal next turn, which has the advantage of being able to potentially soak some damage, but it could just be over here with a lucky Dragon's Bane proc. So we're going to see that Abyssal Summoner absent of any other option here.
Yep.
And Unleash the Hounds. I think tracking
could
first.
Kill command, corrosive breath.
Yep,
corrosive breath would be lethal too.
Ooh, Rottenness Drake, also a possibility. But then again, Rottenness Drake, you're playing a 50-50, and then no, it's not a lethal at that point. You could track it again here, I think, is probably your best bet.
This is tough because the Rottenness Drake, if it comes down and hits the 9/9, it's not lethal, but it almost certainly locks up the game for Goose. I kind of like going for the tracking though,
well, there's the nonetheless.
Yep, and that's all he needed. Yeah, it's 2 kill commands in the deck, 2 corrosive breaths in the deck, and if he doesn't hit that, he gets very close in the way of thinning his deck to get to those lethal options.
Exactly.
So I think the tracking was a good percentage play. Yeah, and it works out for him. Goose is going to 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, as expected there, based on the statistics, we do see the win from Goose here in Game 1. And I'm going to go ahead and fix that while we were just jumping right into Game 2 here. These players were ready to go.
They are ready to go. Yeah, Goose is queuing up the Murloc Paladin. Tues is going to stay on that Quest Warlock, wants to really stay and get a win with that. And Goose probably just wants to throw back this entire hand. I'm not sure if you're in on the mulligan yet, but
I am. I'm trying to fix the stream here, but I'm also contending with a bit of a feline distraction as he keeps whacking my mouse. So there's hazards in play.
Nice. That's nice. Yeah. So Goose here chose to keep the Toxfin and the Hand of Adal, which I would not have done, but I've played a lot less Murloc Paladin than he has, and he picks up the Mermy, which is a much better play on one than the Toxfin would have been. So it's sticky. It'll stay on the board for a bit and be a good target for this hand next turn.
And that's exactly what we're going to see here. He's going to utilize that to create a 3/3 Mermy. Picks up the Tide Collar in the process. That's not a bad pickup.
Very solid, and I think what Goose is going to be looking at here is figuring out how to space out his threats to play around Netherwing. Want to make sure that he plays Seer on some minions that will, on some Murlocs that will take them out of that crazed Netherwing range, and also, of course, being cognizant of Dark Skies and Tues' hand size. But as long as Goose is able to sort of set up his threats in a way that he's not too vulnerable to some of these early game boards, I think he's going to be in a very good spot.
I was informed that you had a very booming voice right now, and that I had to turn you down a little bit.
Really? Okay,
interesting. Your excitement is just coming through them. No, I actually had you at 160%.
So
for some unknown reason.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah. So back to Tues' side though. This Dark Skies is going to clear off the board, except for a 1/1 Mermy, but still a pretty solid line. Might make Goose regret coining out that Tide Caller a little bit there, because it just dies to the Dark Skies, which Tues might have.
Yeah, the darks being knowledge of dark skies as a clear on 3. I know it's not as powerful of a clear as it is. Obviously, if you have a full hand, it's still enough to take out anything that's reasonably statted that would be played in the early game. So this is probably the next best option right here, is to go ahead and play the War Leader and continue to push damage to the face. But we see Mortal Coil in hand, Plot Twist in hand. We get Nether Breath as well. So there are choices here.
Yeah, I like leading with this coil here. Even though War Leader is a pretty important target, you can maybe wait a turn or two to deal with. But I wouldn't hate seeing Tues just go tap into a Soulfire here on the War Leader, because he does have the mana to do it.
And the other question is, does he want to Sense Demons instead, get the almost certain heal? And then if he doesn't get the Broodmaster, or Broodmother, I always call her Broodmaster, Broodmother, he's going to have a Morag Artificer either way. And if he can pick up an Activator for that Nether Breath, he can just use that and heal a bunch off of the War Leader if he happens to pick up the Activator.
That's a good point. And that might actually be a better line to go for. I'm just setting up a little bit later, because the 8 damage swing from an activate Nether Breath is very strong.
And he discards the Broodmother, which I guess, I don't know what you were looking at in hand there that was really what you'd be happy to discard. Obviously, you don't want to discard Plot Twist. That's 90% of your... well, I mean, I guess maybe in this matchup it's not as important, because you don't win by completing your quest. You win by just outlasting the Murloc Paladin.
Exactly.
But either way, I mean, there was not a whole lot in there that he would have been happy to see get discarded. So seeing the Broodmother is one repeated heal that he will no longer have access to in the remainder of this game.
Yes. And seeing the Horde Pillager come into Goose's hand, that was a card that I missed on my initial scan of his Murloc Paladin list. And it's an interesting one to see, because it's a pirate and it hits, I think, just True Silver, unless I'm missing something. But with that in hand, maybe we could have seen the True Silver come out instead, thinking about how much it ends up being over the course of the game. But very interesting to see.
A lot of deliberation here on Tues' side. He did, as we mentioned, pick up the Activator now for that Nether Breath. Though I don't know if either of these is a high enough value target to want to use that. However, if you use the Plot Twist, you're throwing everything back in the deck anyway, and you don't know when you're going to see it again.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe it's good to just throw in the Sense Demons here to get that, 8 damage Nether Breath. But it looks like Tues is thinking about just going for it here, really valuing killing that Cold Lights here, which is interesting.
And he is gonna grab the Sense Demons, as you mentioned. One Moarg, and there's the Broodmother. So he gets the heal. I guess I kind of would have preferred maybe to see the Sense Demons first, because if you healed off of that, you might not play. You might just tap instead, and just keep going.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that too, but Tues choosing to take out the Cold Light Seer anyways, and Goose in sort of an awkward spot here with this hand. He chose to keep Toxfin in the moment, and right now he's able to play it on this 1/3, and maybe this is what he was saving it for, because
Locked
this
out the Abyssal.
Yeah, this is rough, because Tues, I think, was eyeing that Abyssal to play next turn, but now he's not really going to want to play it as much.
Interestingly enough, too, he played the Toxfin that he drew later, and not the one that he kept originally. So, as far as Tues knows, or he has no idea what that first card is yet. He just knows it's been a card that has been kept since the Mulligan and not played.
Yeah, Tues is probably really wondering what that card is, but yeah, maybe we'll see that second Toxfin come out. On Tues' side here, his hand is basically all minions aside for Plot Twist. And Summoner is no longer a good option, in my opinion, with the 1/3 Murloc on board. So I wonder if he just plot twists here.
Ooh, he tapped and he
Ooh.
found the Dark Skies, which actually is not a bad option. As Goose is, down to 3 cards in hand, and
Yeah.
we're 6 turns into the game, and Murloc Paladin has done very, very little damage to the Warlock, which is obviously boding well for Tues.
Exactly. I think, the most damage, like Tues is at 27 now, but that's from, him tapping and then 1 damage from Murloc the last turn. Yeah, Goose is really struggling to find ways to get minions to stick on the board, and both Dark Skies, the one on, I think, turn 3 or turn 4, and then the one on turn 6, have been really huge in preventing Goose from extending his board and buffing the Murlocs that he has.
Now we'll see if Tues gets suckered into using the Abyssal this turn now that the poison is gone, with the Toxfin still in hand. That could be deadly. There's also the option of the Swamp Ooze in Tues' hand to blow up the weapon, but Goose has the Horde Pillager to go ahead and just pop that baby back right on the next turn if he would like. But he can't do both. Tues cannot do both of those things in this turn.
Right, yeah. I wonder if Tues has any sort of read that Goose is holding that Toxfin. I'm not sure if that's a read that I would make, so without that, he may as well just play the Summoner here. I think that's a pretty reasonable line, but if not, you don't know that your opponent has Horde Pillager or a second True Silver in hand, so it's pretty reasonable to just go for the Ooze here. You might not get value out of it later.
And Tasty Flyfish is not a bad Murloc to have for Tues because he has quite a few dragons in his deck.
Actually, not bad. You don't see your opponent get something useful off Flyfisher often, but in this case, not only is the Death Rattle somewhat, Tues was able to spend all of his mana in this turn. Spending 2 mana for a 2/2 when you're fighting for a board is not too bad here.
And he will naturally complete the quest at the start of the next turn with that first draw, and then have the option to go ahead and take a free card from there. So we see a second Toxfin draw, and I guess Goose had, I apologize, he had used the Toxfin that came off of the random generation from his Fish Flinger. A slight tongue twister for you. And down comes the Toxfin again. This is just for tempo, though, because it doesn't even have a target right now. And now, Tues is down to 16, but immediately picks up the Broodmother to heal again.
Oh, wow. But one of the best draws, almost certainly in the quest. And Tues is looking to be in a pretty strong spot now. He has the Artificer and the Nether Breath in hand. If he needs to heal for 8, I think he feels pretty comfortable here. Being at 20 health, he can deal with this board pretty easily, and his opponent only has 1 card in hand.
And I have one word for Goose right now. And that word is Octosari.
Ooh.
And that is a card that I've seen run in some of these Paladin lists, because it's essentially, outside of Hand of a Doll, your only sense of card draw. And I do not believe it is in his list.
Yeah, definitely something that Goose could have thought about to include in his deck, but without this, I'm not sure what other card draw he has besides maybe Hand of a Doll here. So it's going to be for him to come back in this game.
Yeah, he's just living off the top of the deck, essentially. His deck tops out at Scale Lord, which is great if you have a board of Murlocs. If you have no Murlocs, you are not going to be feeling so great about where you are. And right now, that's kind of where he's at. He's got very little in the way of hand, and has done very little damage. And Tues now has completed the quest.
I mean, Tues has 0 mana twisting Nether if he wants to. He can play Nether and then just... Well, I would say... I guess he doesn't have another great play to go along with that, but it doesn't really matter. Just the fact that he can full clear his opponent's board and still be at 20 health is very strong.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess necessarily what else you're holding on to the Nether for, if you don't want to use it now.
Yeah, I just, with your opponent only getting 1 card a turn, I don't think the board gets much bigger than this. But he's in a very strong spot no matter what he does, to be honest. I think this is reasonable as well.
Sure, this is largely clear, and also lets you use another breath. So he's
Yeah,
definitely
why
going to clear
not?
up some hand space here, and put down the questing. It's not going to draw you a card anymore, but that's totally fine. And there's a Scale Lord, which is
Yeah.
just a 5/6.
That's rough. And you really, like, when you're looking at the mulligan, you never want to have a card that you keep, but then you end up not playing it until I think that was just last turn, on turn 8, that Goose ended up playing that. So I think that's probably a sign that he should have opted for a different option for his mulligan there. Maybe just got a little bit too excited. Maybe there was some mistake where he didn't mean to keep it, but that Toxin ended up just sitting in the hand and ended up not doing anything this game.
Yeah, an unfortunate decision there. I mean, I get the reasoning behind keeping it though, and now Hand of Adal really
Ooh,
just going to have to go on the token in order to get any sort of draw out of this here. And a Tide
been a
Collar
while.
is really not a lot on turn turn 12 or wherever we are, but that's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like a good idea to keep going. And I was gonna say, I think the Twisting Nether could have been a decision to hold because of the Murger
The
Prime.
What?
Yeah, the Prime Murloc
Oh,
that makes
okay.
for Divine Shielded Murlocs when it comes down.
I think that was reasonable. Yeah, looking back at that turn, I think I like the line that Tues ended up going with better, because it let him clear the board and get a little bit of heal, get a couple small minions on board too. But at that point, I think it was essentially over.
Yeah, holding it for that, you'd have to see your opponent draw the Murloc, play the Murloc, have it die, and then draw the Prime. It seemed like the game was probably going to be long over at that point. And we see that it was, because he got a concede. So now we're into game 3, which is going to feature Demon Hunter versus Priest.
Yeah. And this is, again, like most of the matchups here, Demon Hunter is favored, but it's going to be relatively close. Goose has a pretty strong start here. One drop into Umberwing into what's probably going to be Satyr next turn. It's always nice when you can play Satyr Overseer on 3 and have either that or the weapon from Umberwing to go along with it, so you can immediately start getting those 2/2s out there. And
but you do have to be conscious of the Breath of the Infinite, which is a very strong possibility that Priest will have on turn 3, and that is just going to blow your plan up, which we see Tues has it. And he knows that if that Satyr comes down, which I'm sure Goose would love to play next turn, then he is just going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, very good point. So Goose could opt to go for the Shadow Reaver instead. I really like this coin Mind Flayer from Tues here, even though it's just for the Death Rattle to summon a 2/2. Just getting a 3/3 that summons a 2/2 for 3 is very strong against a deck that relies early as much as Demon Hunter does.
Yeah, I think the beauty of that card is that it's usable early in a matchup like this where it's very tempo heavy and knowing you're going to have to fight for board. But it's also very useful in a matchup where you know your opponent's going to be playing humongous threats later, especially death rattle threats, things like that, that you can kind of swing the game back in your favor. So Tues using it there, I think, is a perfect utilization of that card in this matchup.
Yep, exactly. And with both of the Shadow Reavers, he can even choose to freeze it again next turn and just sort of delay that value a little bit longer. And now Tues is in a spot where I think he might have hoped to get that Apotheosis down and get some heal, but with the Mind Flayer frozen, he's going to have to opt for something.
Yeah, I think Penance is a fine choice here. It clears out the 4/3, which he would otherwise have no way to cleanly remove, other than using the body of the Mind Flayer. And right now we do see he's got Murozond in hand, so the Breath of the Infinite is not going to hit his own minions when he decides to play it. And we're going to see a repeat of turn 3, where the Frozen Shadow Weaver will come down and Battle Fiend gets committed to the board as well.
Makes a lot of sense, and Goose can swing with this remaining 1 durability of the weapon, as he does have the second Umberwing in hand too, and once again presenting a board that goes very wide. Some of it is weak to Breath of the Infinite, but he will at the very least have a 4/1 stick around, which is not
Yeah, we do see the breath come down. I think that was the right time for it. You get as much value as you can out of it, and then you have to try to figure out what you're going to do here in the later turns to stay alive. We do see, like you mentioned, Goose has the Satyr into the Umber Wing, which will allow him to reestablish a board very quickly. However, that Satyr would die almost immediately to really any number of options from Tues' hand, and including the Karj that's already on board.
Yeah, Tues just has so many ways, I think, to counter anything that Goose does. If almost certainly one minion is going to stick, Goose could go for a full clear by trading the 4-1 in and then going Umberwing hero power. But that's not great for his board presence, so okay, he's going to opt to do that, shuts off the Apotheosis, but any minions that Goose gets down, like once he ends up committing the Satyr, that's going to be a pretty easy Shadow Madness for Tues.
And we might just see Sethic here. Oh, well, now we've got Shield of Galakron as a pickup. But I was going to say Sethic plus Apotheosis was a possibility here because you generate that random spell, and also you wonder how does Goose remove a minion with 6 health without hitting it, which would be next to impossible unless he's got double eye beam. Shield of Galakron it is.
Yeah, and I mean like the 2/2 and both 1/1s aren't extremely impactful. It's not the kind of thing that Tues wants to go ahead and maybe set up something to clear that. So I like going for the Shield of Galakron. The Skeletal Dragon, pretty strong pickup here. Wow.
Love that pickup for Tues. That's such a good pickup in almost any matchup, but this one in particular where your opponent's going to need to hit it face first a lot of the time, even if he's using like Warglaive or something like that. It's going to do a lot of work against Goose, I think, as we move into the next phase of the game, which is the phase of the game where Goose hopes to top deck Skull of Kul'tan. That's out of cards.
Yeah, this is looking like the same story as the last game, where Goose has a lot of early game cards, a lot of early game minions, and he's getting some board, but then Tues has the board clears, he's able to deal with that pretty easily, and then Goose is just in top deck mode. I think it's going to have to be Skull for Goose to have a chance as we see the Shadow Madness come down and deal with 2 of these really threatening minions.
Yeah, and why not get the Forbidden Words, go ahead and use that too.
Wow.
Oh, and picks up another 0 spell. Yeah, definitely don't want to use it on the Battle Fiend, because then you'll give him the Battle Fiend back. Well, no, you wouldn't, because he would kill it 2/4, but...
It would die anyways, but...
Oh, and he can Circle View if he wants to play it... well, that one doesn't target an actual minion.
Oh,
so
yeah, no.
It won't be worth it. That's just exciting. That was like shades of Lyra.
Oh man, you made me forget some of those days with Raza Priest. But yeah, a bunch of really cheap, and Goose beaming sidekick, one of the worst, if not the worst top deck I think that he could have gotten. Just a 1-mana minion,
really,
gonna be able to get +2 health, but it just he's really gonna need that Skull to get into this game, I think, because Tues can just slam down the Skeletal Dragon now.
Yeah, I think Skeletal Dragon is a perfectly fine play. We might even see just that and then Murazon next turn if he really would like. Shield of Galakron probably fine as well.
Yeah. Or even Apotheosis. Get some more spells. Get 4-attack minion with lifesteal. Also a fine play.
He's gonna do that. And I was wondering, is there a wild Pyromancer in this deck for that Apotheosis? It's not really necessary. Oh my goodness, and there's the Penance as well.
Wow, Tues' pickups off of this Veil Weaver could not have been more perfect.
And sure, grab an Eye Beam too, why not?
Why not? Need some more lifesteal.
So Goose does pick up Metamorphosis, which is 10 damage over the next 2 turns, but that's pretty much going to be countered almost completely by the Sethic.
Yeah, I mean, Goose can... Maybe he's thinking about trying to hero power down the Sethic, or he's just going to hold it, but this is just a tough position to be in. Tues can, play out the Skeletal Dragon, he can play out the Shield of Galakron.
Well, if he takes the Murazon here, he gets Metamorphosis himself.
That's true. That could, guess makes the game speed up a little bit.
I was gonna say, you're the one in control. I think that's absolutely the right play.
Altruist, maybe if he had like 8 more cards in hand.
Yeah, just a little
But-
shy of where he would like to be for an Altruist
Yeah.
turn.
Wow, and Tues going up
that's
2-1.
a big play.
I did not expect this looking at the matchup chart at the start of this game, but Tues managed to win those 2 unfavorables and now just has to get 1 more win to lock up the match and lock up tap last.
Into game 4 we go. The only deck remaining now for Tues is that Druid that we were a little unsure of exactly what archetype it fit into, and we're going to see it run against the Demon Hunter.
Yeah, this Druid has pretty poor matchups across the board, although this one in particular actually is fairly close to even from the data that I have at least. So should be interesting. I have not seen this Malygos Druid in action yet.
And we are going to see here, we see Breath of Dreams twice in the opening hand for Tues, so he's going to be able to ramp pretty well, and he's already got a dragon as well. So even though that Alexstrasza is expensive, it's going to be a whole lot less expensive once he plays Breath of Dreams twice. And if he can just get to Overflow, refill that hand, and be at, he'll be at 7 mana here on turn 4, then that's going to be a really, really good start for Tues. And you know what? Exactly. Get there even faster with Innervate. Why not?
Yeah, this is shaping up to be pretty good. On Goose's side, a couple good early game minions, and yeah, opting to just play this Twin Slice so you can get the draw from Runner, I think makes a lot of sense. And he'll pick up the Warglaives here, which can definitely come in handy. So not a bad start from Goose as well, as the Druid goes through these early turns that are mostly just going to be ramping up and not doing much to affect.
Well, there's Breath of Dreams number 2. Draws another dragon. Now he's got Overflow next turn if he wants it.
Yeah. Double Innervate in the Overflow. He might opt to go just for the single Innervate into the Explorer instead. Unfortunate sort of weak turn by Goose, just hero powering on 3, and he doesn't have anything for turn 4 yet either. So this could be the avenue that Tues needs to take control.
I was going to say, I think the Overflow is the correct play until he picked up that second Explorer, and now we can go Explorer into Explorer over these 2 turns, and you pretty much, I wouldn't say lock out the game, but you're going to have to invest a lot of resources as Goose in order to get through 2 8 health taunts. Though Altruist is a card that can help you get there, though not a whole lot of stuff in hand that's going to work well with it at this point for Goose. We haven't seen Gul'dan's Skull in either game so far, and those Glaive Mount Adepts are very large blockers to a big Altruist turn.
Yeah, not the turn you wanted to see it. Maybe later in the game in a couple turns, Goose could get some value out of that, but for now he's just going to have to and hope that maybe he can get a good Warglaives turn on turn 5.
Double Alexstrasza, or he could have had double Ysera. Wow. Just an absolute embarrassment of riches for Tues. He had choices on choices. He made his choice pretty quick with Alexstrasza there because, what's better than healing to 15 once in a game is healing to 15 a second time.
Now this, I was going to say that Goose could go for Warglaives and get a full clear, but he'll choose to instead play this Glaive Bound Adept, which makes sense. This gets a little bit more on the board, and he can just Hero Power or Hero Power Warglaives next turn.
Mount Cellar will be the play. Bog Beam to start. And an unfortunate Desert Hare.
Not what Tues wanted to see. He could have chosen to play out the Innervate there, but with the Alexstrasza and the Ysera in a hand, I think it makes sense to hold on to it because the 5/8 is almost certainly going to stick around.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, and if you had something to play after the Innervate or to use the Innervate to go into like Crystal Power, that's fine. But you're basically just throwing that Innervate out into the ether and saying, yeah, let's give me a minion.
Yeah.
Which I think, like you said, it's more valuable to him. Which in this case, he is going to see that Mount Cellar not live, which is unfortunate. But in the process, Goose hits himself for 14 damage. So you think to yourself, well, I think my Mount Seller did its job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is definitely enough value from Tues. Seeing his opponent at 8 and sitting pretty comfortably himself at 22. Um, I okay. He chooses to innervate and then pretty quickly goes for the Alex on himself.
Yep, he put
Wow.
himself down to 15, took 7 damage effectively to play Alex, but Alex and himself, or herself specifically, represents lethal now, and Goose cannot use those Warglaives in any way to handle it without an I-beam, which we know he does not have.
And it makes sense. Without even with an I beam, Goose would have struggled to deal with this 8/8. But Tues knows that he is safe at least for this turn at 15, and Goose is running out of options here. I'm not even sure what he does have without the I beam.
Yeah, we're probably going to see him start with the Sigil Runner. There it is, to see what we pick up. But Beaming Sidekick is just numb. I mean, I guess the other option would have been using Altruis to see if you could go off, but at the same time, there was not a whole lot of option there in order to get rid of Alex cleanly.
I think the line there might have been Altruis Runner, and if you get exactly I beam, it might not even have done it then. But yeah, I mean that's going to take the series 3-1 in a really unfavored matchup overall, but pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's probably one of the more impressive series I've seen on stream, based on the matchup chart that we looked at the beginning of the game, where man, it was just not favored for Tues at all, and Tues just made it look pretty easy in a couple of those games.
I know, and I mean, looking at it back now, that last match was, again, by the data, 48% against Demon Hunters, so basically even. Whereas if Goose maybe stayed on the Murloc Paladin is apparently 30, or sorry, so the Druid is 30 Paladin. A lot more disparity there. Maybe Goose could have at least picked up another 1 or 2 wins before taking that eventual loss on the Demon Hunter against Tues' Druid, but doesn't matter now. Tues with a 3-1 in, and I believe that does lock up the series for Tap Last against Due Process.
You are correct. That is going to be the series, as now Tap Last, they started 8-5, so that's going to make it 12-6, which means that the best that Due Process can hope for, a sweep, of course, of ItsMeMikeV over Tyfoon, would still make it only 12-10. So, yep, you're correct. Tap Last wins the week.
Yeah, so congrats to them. But luckily, we still do have the remaining match. The players will probably that they are no longer playing to win the week, but they are playing for critical points, and we've seen a lot of playoff races in seasons past come down to just tiebreakers or even a few points. So, getting 4 points versus only getting 1 or 2 here for either Tyfoon could prove to be very impactful towards the end of the season.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely want to play out every series like it matters more than anything else in the world. And I'm sure we're going to get the best of both these players here, even though the week is decided. And I do have a request, obviously. Tues, congratulations to you on the win. He has a request of us. He wants to call out Avi for next week's Schoolstone. So if you're listening out there, Avi, Tues wants you on Saturday or Sunday. I don't know when Schoolstone will be next week, but I'm sure you guys can work that out with Lotus to see if that high-powered match can make it on stream, which I think would be exciting. So definitely can do that for you, Tues. Consider it done. He's called out.
Nice. Always good to see that.
So, like we were saying, we do have one more match to go tonight, so let's talk about that one a little bit. I'm gonna let these players know that we're getting into to the midway point here, and they can start to challenge up, and I'll also check and see if there are any bans. But first thing I want to do is go ahead and pop the decks up on screen. As we mentioned, it is a mirror match, but there are slight differences in the actual list. So we'll pop that up, and I'll let you talk about that a little bit here, Markshire, before we get going. And it should be noted that Tyfoon's decks will be on your left and Mike V's will be on your right.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and pull up the decks myself.
They are much, much larger than the lists that we just looked at because no Highlander decks were brought in this first series, and multiple Highlander decks are going to be brought here in the second one.
Yeah, no emphasis on multiple decks because if you haven't noticed yet, these two players brought the exact lineup. Is exact same archetypes and some slight differences in the actual lists, but overall fairly the same. Do you know if we have bans in?
That is what I'm looking at right now.
Oh, actually, I can see now. They both banned Warrior.
Shocking.
Not surprising. What we saw from the last match too.
Yeah, sorry to fans of Garrosh and or Deathwing and or Magni if you are a real hipster, but you will not be seeing any of them featured here on Salty Saturday.
I was kind of looking forward to seeing at least one Bomb Warrior match tonight. All four of our players did bring Bomb Warrior, but we will not be seeing any of those games because they were all banned. And so, getting into the actual list, let's see. We have looking at Mike's list first. So he is on Quest Warlock, Tempo Demon Hunter, and Highland. Everything seems pretty standard. He's opted for the double Aug Merchant in Demon Hunter, which some people have been playing, and also the Spectral Sight as well, which I know is not in any Demon Hunter list. But other than nothing is really standing out to me as too interesting. It seems like maybe if we look into the Highlander Hunter list a little bit more, we'll see some text that could prove valuable in some of these matchups.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list myself right now, and I do like Highlander Hunter as a deck. I will say I think it's powerful. I don't tend to have the best fortunes with it, and I'm not going to put that on the deck. So, not entirely anyway. I mean, I'm not out here saying if anything goes wrong with the decks, it's obviously the deck's fault.
True. That's the first rule of Hearthstone right there.
Yeah, stupid draws, stupid cards. But looking at specifically the Highlander Hunter, I'm looking at Typhoons right now. He's got the Boom Pistol Bully in there, which is a pretty interesting card, and I see that in some of the Highlander Hunters, but it definitely makes its appearance in the higher end Highlander Hunters, where they're focused more on that end game, like the Grand Slam that's in his deck, for example. He's really kind of, with that Warrior ban, he's saying I don't really care too much about necessarily fighting too hard in those first few turns to make sure that the board is secure, and I'm just going to overwhelm you with stuff later in the game. So the Boom Pistol Bully will help him get to those later stages of the game, which I really like. And we don't see that over in the Hunter list for Mike V. He is running the secret version instead. So the decks themselves do play pretty differently in those middle turns, middle to early, like early to middle turns, when you have a different game plan. Secrets individually are not super powerful, but they are cards that can be drawn out pretty easily by the Face Stalker, which can cut your deck down in size and get you to your power cards a lot faster.
Definitely can be useful, and a lot of the way that these matches end up playing with the Highlander Hunter is they're kind of just playing maybe one threat a turn, right? You play your 3-drop, you play your 4, you play your 5, and I think something like Freezing Trap, if it's played at the right moment, can come in handy. So that could end up being one of those cards that, whereas looking over, at Typhoon's list, seeing the Grand Slam, I'm not sure if this is a matchup that's gonna necessarily get to the late game, get to the point where on turn 10 or turn 10 plus, you're gonna get the chance to play that. If he does, obviously that's such a huge amount of value in one card. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and possibly Dino Tamer Bran. That's the most that you're going to get out of any card, so it could come in useful. But I think it might be more likely in a mirror that card ends up just being dead.
Yeah, I can't say specifically whether I think it's a great inclusion in the deck, but I will say that it's a very fun inclusion in the deck because it's essentially the Hunter's Puzzle Box.
True.
And if there's anything that the stream loves, it's Puzzle Box. So Hunter Box should just be a close second, I would imagine, in terms of entertainment value. So now we've looked at the decks.
Yes.
I'm going to put the chart up on screen, and it's going to shock everybody what they're going to see. But guess what? It is literally a mirror, so everything is even on both sides.
Yeah, that one lined up really nicely.
Very easy to cut and paste that picture.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Just throw it in there. Yeah. So both warriors were banned. So that's the last deck on both sides. So it's pretty easy to just take that row out, that column out, and you can see the remaining matchups. I think the question here is going to be who can get a win with their Quest Warlock, and probably who can win the Quest Warlock mirror. Highlander Hunter is one of the worst matchups that the deck has just overall, and definitely in this series. Looking at 35, it's going to be really tough, I think, to find a win either way. Demon Hunter is probably more winnable, but still unfavored. But I would not be surprised to see this end up coming down to a Game 5 Quest Warlock.
Sure. And following in the footsteps of other decks that are prevalent in this meta, Quest Warlock is tough to play. I mean, there are definitely a lot of weird lines to take, a lot of decision points, even very early in the game, that can win or lose you the game, not necessarily on the spot, but can put you into tough spots later that you can't get out of. So you really have to plan ahead. You really have to be focused on where your opponent's going with their deck, be paying attention to hand, and be paying attention to your own hand, because you run into a lot of hand space issues when you're tapping as much as humanly possible. So it is a deck that has a lot of facets. It's very tough, and it's only really been prevalent now for a couple weeks, and I don't know if a lot of people had a ton of practice with it yet. So we'll see if either of these players have been practicing and have an edge, at least in experience on the deck.
Yeah, Donde, I was going to make that same point too, is that
Quest Warlock
only Quest Warlock only recently rose to prominence. Compare that to Tempo Demon Hunter and Highlander Hunter. These are decks that pretty much since the beginning of the meta have been known to be strong. I would say the only main difference is that after the Demon Hunter nerfs, people moved away. They took Priestess out of their decks. You saw a couple core cards get switched around. Things like Frozen Shadow Weaver, which were only rarely played initially, are now pretty consistent as a 2 of in every list. But overall, the play style of the deck has remained the same. The play style of Highlander Hunter has remained the same throughout this entire meta and this entire THL season. Quest Warlock, not so much. It's an archetype that we haven't really seen before, so I think that could end up being a huge deciding factor. As you said, who has put in the reps, on ladder or practicing to figure the intricacies of this deck, the different facets of Quest Warlock, and that could end up deciding who wins this match.
I don't know where everyone else is at, but when I was practicing Quest Warlock, I was essentially only playing against Demon Hunters, so I really found out how that matchup worked, and spoiler alert, it does not go well for the Warlock a lot of the time, at least not in my experience. So my learning of it was essentially just how to survive in the early game, and not necessarily how to really optimize the turns, and that did not work out well for me either way. I was very, very poor with it. So I'm kind of interested to see if we can get a Demon Hunter versus Mali Warlock, Quest Warlock tonight, just so I can see kind of how it's supposed to go. Or maybe I'll see if somebody has the same struggles that I have with it. It's entirely possible the same thing happens.
It's going to be really interesting. I don't personally have a ton of experience with Quest Warlock, so I'll be interested to see if maybe Tyfoon or Mike has some more reps on the deck and is able to pull out either of those wins. If not, we might just see it end up being decided in the mirror. And I'm looking both of these decks right now. This is, I believe, I'm looking at Mike's right now. His Quest Warlock list is running the Dark Portal, 4 mana, draw a minion. If you have at least 8 cards in your hand, have you seen that card in Quest Warlock before?
I've seen it. I've seen discussion about whether or not it's warranted there. I mean, it has the possibility of hitting and being very destructive, but I don't know if it's necessarily better than the core list that a lot of people are running, which do not include it. Again, I have not played around with it myself, so I can't say for sure that it's better or not. But the people who know better than me have said that it is typically not included in most of like the GM decks, things like that.
I think it's interesting. You've seen, I think it's like Wilfred Fizzlebang, maybe the 4 mana that discounts all your dragons. 4 mana. I think this card is, filling a similar role in that it can take some of those big minions and decrease their cost, but this does it a lot more directly in just a 1 minion. I can see it. I can see it working out unless you hit, one of your 2 mana minions. You're getting a pretty significant discount, and if you draw this when you have 8 cards in hand, maybe you hit a Broodmother, then that's just, or sorry, a Abyssal Summon. 1 mana, 2/2. You're making an 8/8 or making a 9/9.
Very true.
That could be the tempo swing that maybe Mike needs to win the mirror here.
And as you may have noticed, we are somewhat stalling a little bit right now, waiting for, obviously 9 o'clock is the set time on the East Coast for match 2. We ended a little bit early in match 1, so we're just trying to make sure that we get Mike and Tyfoon challenged up. We're just trying to find Tyfoon. I know he was out in chat there, buddy, so I need you to get online so we can get this going, because the people want to see.
I haven't even here. We can use this time for some chat interaction. Let's see.
Yeah, man. Take a look at chat.
A lot of poggers. Okay, that's cool. Always good to see poggers in chat. Yeah. Come on, Typhoon. If you were watching the stream, you can certainly have Hearthstone up at the same time, and then it's on 10 minutes.
Well, at this point in real time, we have now ended the last game. So at this point,
that's true. Maybe
even he can see without a spoiler that the game is over and it's time to play.
Yeah. So, seeing if I can see any more discrepancies in these lists. We hit on the Boom Pistol Bully and then a Grand Slam versus the Secret, and then the one I already forgot the name of it, honestly, the Dark Portal. I'm definitely gonna not know what that card does, by the way, when it when it inevitably comes up in one of the games. The Dark for Mike, and then Typhoon going with more of a standard, and and this is, I believe, Mike running the Sightless Watcher, double Sightless Watcher in the Demon Hunter. Never really has seen consistent play from what I've seen in Demon Hunter. Not a bad card by any means, but just 2 mana 3/2 can maybe help smooth out your curve, help get you lethal when you really need it. Might end up working out for him in the mirror in this particular case, just because I think having early tempo can really determine who ends up running away with the game in the Demon Hunter.
Yeah, the Watchers are really one of those cards that it got played a little bit here and there, but with the removal of Priestess of Fury and the Fell Screamer package from Demon Hunter, you had a lot of cards that you now need to find homes for new cards in the deck. So you can see in Typhoon's list, he's got the Guardian Og Merchant, and that's a card that I really like because it can kind of steamroll a little early with the Battle Fiend, or even on a Blazed Battle Mage. It just makes them very hard to remove. One thing that we saw earlier today with Saku, and it's something I like to do, is Bone Chewer Brawlers alongside those Guardian Og Merchants, because in a mirror that is a very, very tough hill to overcome if you're trying to get rid of a Divine Shielded 4/4 taunt on turn 3. As a Demon Hunter, you're not enjoying.
Exactly. So we'll see. Okay, so Typhoon says he's having some issues getting into BattleNet, running into some glitches there. So he is trying to get on, might take another couple minutes, but
okay.
I
do see him online on my friends list, which is a good sign.
Oh, you do? Okay, so maybe he was.
Maybe that's his excuse for not friending you.
Possibly, we'll see.
I'm having trouble logging onto BattleNet, and I'm like, dude, we're in Game 4 right now. What are you talking about? And you're just over there sitting there, unable to view.
Yeah, I hope not. No, I can see that he's online now as well. So hopefully in just a couple of minutes we will be able to get into our last match of the night.
And I'll let them know, of course, they are ready to go the moment they have challenged up. So, band's already in. They don't have to do any of that process. So it should be, we are ready from Mike. So I will let them know, and we will get into
Perfect.
game 1. And just like last series, Due Process and ItsMeMikeV will be on the bottom, and Tyfoon and Tap Last will be on the top.
It's good they've fixed most of the bugs in the friends list. It is a little bit difficult to stroll between the I's and the T's in my list right now. I think it's working enough that I will at least be able to spectate. So.
Yeah, I've had more glitches on my friends list since they fixed the glitches. I didn't have problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems, and they were like, "We fixed it," and I was like, "Oh, now I see what everyone was having problems with because this is the first time I've actually experienced it." But,
that's funny.
It's not ideal. It definitely makes it tough.
Yeah. Man, in my I think it was last week, my pro match against Ox, it took us like 10 minutes to challenge each other. We just both tried. We were like, I was hitting challenge, and it just, as soon as I hit it, it would glitch. It would jump to somewhere else on the list, and just finally, I was able to just like really quickly hit it, and he got it. I think the worst of it.
I mean, that just makes sense
we'll
because like it takes time for the internet to cross the ocean.
That's true. Could have been a factor there from across the pond.
So I did not I spectated Kel by accident because my thing glitched.
Let's go, Kel.
Sorry, Kel. You're not making
his
guest appearance on screen tonight.
Who recently became a full-time player? Didn't he recently become a replacement for some team? Okay,
he did.
Anyways, we are getting into the game. It may not be up on stream right now, but I am in, and I can tell you that Mike is on Highlander Hunter. Tyfoon is on Demon Hunter. Mike looking off to a solid start with the Sharpshooter on turn 1, and with the Dino Tamer Bran already in hand if you can get to turn 10s.
Kel did want us to know that if we need to spec him, he's allowing it. So if something goes wrong here, Kel, we'll be coming to watch you, my friend. But for right now, I did manage to get into the game with Mike on the bottom, as mentioned, Tyfoon on the top. I see everything, so we are good to go.
That's awesome. Just as you did, my spectate bugged out, so
naturally.
Give me 1 second, and I'll be back in.
Just like a Highlander deck, there can only be one spectator.
One at a time. New feature. That was one of the updates.
Thank you, Based Blizzard. But we do see, like you mentioned, Mike has a pretty good start here. He hit the Phase Stalker with his Scavenger's Ingenuity. Even though it's been nerfed, it's still not a bad card. But right now he has yet to use the hero power to draw any secrets out of the deck. And we'll see if Tyfoon wants to find a way to get rid of it before he can.
Yeah, nice I-beam pickup. I could see that, and then maybe coining out the Satyr, get some more board presence, but he will be able to at least kill off the Phase Stalker with that I-beam.
Yeah, the other option could be to use the Chaos Strike plus the I-beam, so you can hit the 4/5, kill that, and then heal back up a little ways with the I-beam. Not that he would get full heal value right now for it anyway because he's at 27. But
right.
that would leave him with no board if he wanted to use the 1/1s to clear off the Blazing Battle Mage, for example, and not ideal to go into turn 4 as a Demon Hunter with no board of your own volition.
Gonna choose to I-beam first, and he can still choose to coin off the Satyr. Of course, the downside of that is that it will easily die to hero power. Looks like he's gonna choose to just hero power instead and not put anything on the board. Sort of more of a passive play, which I'm not quite as sure about against the Highlander Hunter, because its weakness in this matchup, from my understanding, is really just when the Demon Hunter goes wide, and the Hunter can struggle to deal with that, and then you get some chip damage in, then finish off with maybe Warglaives or Metamorphosis. But Mike is now able to get this Dragonbane down, and Tyfoon is really going to struggle to deal with that with what he has.
I was going to say, I actually kind of like the idea from Tyfoon, because we're going to see the Satyr Overseer come out here, and you use the Umberwing to clear off the Dwarven Sharpshooter, which now means that you can't just go ahead and utilize the hero power to get rid of the Satyr. You're going to have to use some of your minions, or a weapon if you have it, / happen to have picked it up if you're Mike V. So, that I don't think was a poor decision by Tyfoon. He optimized the ordering to make sure he took the least amount of damage possible on that turn prior.
Totally fair, and that is important to keep in mind as the Demon Hunter. Even though you're generally the aggressor, the Highlander Hunter has a lot of reach with its hero power, and with some of the other cards it has, things like Bran. But going back over to Mike's side, I think he has a very nice just play here with trading in the 3/5 and then playing down this Rotnest Drake to take the board, have a 3/3 and a 6/5 on board. Very tough for the Demon Hunter to do.
Yeah, as much as he'd like to slam that hero power button, I don't think it's necessary here. I think that's exactly the right play, and I do like the use of the Rotnest Drake there.
Tyfoon picking up the Warglaives here. He can't deal with the 6/5 well without taking a ton of damage, but could just opt to kill the Dragonbane, hit face, and then he at least has Metamorphosis next turn, and it looks like that's Tyfoon's line of thinking here.
And Mike does pick up the Stormhammer, which is useful right away. I mean, if you pull that, if you put that on right now, you get a free swing, or he's going to use the Feywing instead.
The Stormhammer plus hero power plus swinging, that would be 11 total this turn.
And then you've got Bran next turn.
For lethal.
Yeah, Bran plus Stormhammer the turn thereafter. I think absolutely.
I like this, and Mike thought about playing that Feywing, but ends up going with a Stormhammer. I like this a lot, especially having already seen the Eye Beam from your opponent. It's going to be really... I don't know if Tyfoon has anything that can stop this lethal, actually.
Yeah, he'll be tempted to use Metamorphosis to get rid of the dragon, but then the bad news is Bran will come down, and I mean, just beyond just using the Stormhammer there as a setup for lethal, spacing out the dragons with this deck to make sure your Stormhammer continues to have charges is a good strategy as well. But that was not his concern here. His concern was making sure he had 30 damage total in the first 7 turns, which he did. And Tyfoon is going to fall in game 1 here. Mike V will pick up that W, which I think is what we saw in the first series, if I recall. Goose won game 1.
Yep. Won game 1 very quickly. It was Dragon Hunter versus Questlocke, and then he proceeded to lose the next 3 games. So we'll see if Tap Last can continue that trend, if Tyfoon can maybe pick up these next 3 games here as well. But a really strong start from Mike V. Always nice to just be able to finish off with 8 damage to the face on turn 7.
And in we go to game 2. We're going to see that Demon Hunter for Mike V versus the Warlock. So we are going to get to see the Warlock versus Demon Hunter. I'm excited. And ItsMeMikeV is going to, I was going to say, he's going to throw away almost all of that hand, everything but the Blazing Battle Mage. And we do see Skull of Gul'dan, which is the first appearance it's made all night long.
You're right. We have not seen that at all. I feel pretty confident it will get played this game. Just looking at the 2 cards to the left, Chaos Strike and Umberwing are pretty confident will come out in these early game turns. And then maybe Mike will be looking at a turn 5 with a coin or just a turn 6.
Yeah, I think it's very telling that, we've seen struggles of Demon Hunter tonight, and in all of those games that struggle, no Skull of Gul'dan. So it's a card that you don't necessarily want to have in your hand this early, but it's great when you need to use it and get the draw, and especially if you have something like Altruist to combo with. And that's just been something that's been missing in these Demon Hunter games here on the early side of this broadcast.
And I think it's very important to have in this matchup too. The Quest Warlock matchup is gonna go at least to the mid game or to the late game, and being able to play Skull and then get, a huge tempo swing with the cheap cards, maybe the turn after, or even that turn, that can be really good in putting a lot of pressure on the Quest Warlock at once. And because they have, they have board clears, they have Netherwing and Rain of Fire, but they can't really deal with a lot of stuff all at once in one turn.
And we see that Rain of Fire being comboed with the Moarg Artificer is a nice smooth clear. It's one of many options, as you mentioned, that the Warlock has to get rid of those Satyrs on turn 3. So now it's up to Mike V to kind of reestablish and make sure he finds a sticky board that can continue to push damage. Malagos in the hand is not what Tyfoon wanted here.
Yeah, might come in handy with another breath down the line. Mike, though, looking to be in good shape. He'll be able to coin Skull next turn, and I think he's saving that Cane. He could have opted for the Cane last turn, but that can really come in handy later against the Abyssal Summoners, or against the taunts that the Abyssal Summoners summon.
Yeah, if you need that final bit of burst. But now we are wondering here. So Tyfoon, he picked up both Broodmothers. He's back to full. He's feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
We've reached turn 5, and against the Demon Hunter, when you're at full health on turn 5, you feel strong with the resources you've got in your hands. So I think as long as Tyfoon manages manages out his removals for the rest of the game, I think he should have a massive advantage here with that plot twist already in hand.
Absolutely, the plot twist is huge. I do like Mike here going for the adapt rather than just the coin skull. I think it's important to keep the pressure up while you can and maybe make it awkward for your opponent to clear it. Tyfoon here not having an immediate answer, but he could put up a taunt with Abyssal. I think it's more likely he opts to maybe go for a Shadow Reaver, even double Shadow Reaver, and prevent some of this damage that otherwise could.
Yeah, Tyfoon would like to... I'm sure he would like to plot twist here if he can, but yeah, putting down the Abyssal Summoner feels like a good decision. However, as you mentioned, Cane is in hand for Mike, and if he wants to just start pushing damage, we've already seen both Broodmothers in hand. We know that there's no way for Tyfoon to draw into healing, and he didn't play Nether Breath. So you have to be reasonably confident that it's not in his hand right now, and you could just opt to go ahead and push as much damage right now and try to get him into a spot where he never feels comfortable going ahead and plot twisting away his hand and hoping he just gets lucky with what he draws.
I know. Wow. The Tyfoon is, I think, pretty reasonable from, the Summoner, I think, is very reasonable from Tyfoon's point of view, but this is a huge window for Mike now to take this game. I believe he can 16 damage coming in this turn, if I counted that correctly, but he could, get Tyfoon very low by playing this Cane, sending everything face, and then maybe just hope for a Skull to pick up a Warglaves or a Metamorphosis to just end the game there, possibly. Absolutely. In the next.
Yeah, the longer this game goes on, the worse it gets for Mike, because Tyfoon's going to start to, he's going to start to draw all those power cards that he needs if he doesn't already have them.
And Mike's running out of time here. I don't like going for the Satyr instead of the Cane, to be honest, because when else is Cane getting better? This is just 8 damage going into the taunt that otherwise could have gone face.
And it's immediately counterable by the remaining 2/2 that's on board. He's just going to go ahead and use... I mean, I guess you have to choose between killing the Battle Fiend and killing the Satyr, provided you don't have an option to kill both. So we do see the Artificer draw, which means that Artificer plus the second Rain of Fire that Tyfoon drew last turn is again an option, which would put Tyfoon down to 17, but leave the board empty.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting here is that Tyfoon, in a pretty solid spot, has a ton of cards, but doesn't have much in the way of spells or healing. I wonder if he decides to maybe play out some things, maybe the Artificer Rain of Fire, like you said, and then try to go for a plot twist here.
Yeah, it looks like that seems to be the way he's going. I mean, you could also Frozen Shadow Weaver. Yeah, there's the tap. So, Nether Breath. Now, does that change your mind at all?
No, that's tough. I think Tyfoon was planning on plot twist. I think it's still a solid line, but it feels kind of bad to give up on this heal. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think he senses the blood in the water. Mike V's down to 10 now. That the plot twist is not the path to victory anymore. You don't need to complete the quest in order to win this game necessarily. And he's just going to go ahead and use the tools he's got in his hand. But Warglaves is the pickup off the top for Mike. He's a Spectral Sight as well. Gets an I-Beam.
Warglaves into the Spectral. This is pretty big. This is a lot of damage for Mike coming in next turn. It's just weird that he still hasn't used the Skull. Just having that is not exactly what you... And now this Shadow Reaver coming in is going to prevent the damage from the Warglaves and prevent the Adept from getting procced from last.
I think the thing about Skull is that you really don't want to use it unless you have no other great options. And Mike's had other options that he can use. Where he doesn't, and Skull's sitting on the left side of his hand. At a moment's notice, it'll be ready to be used. And if he needs to use it to dig for a lethal or something along those lines, then that's totally fine. So I'm okay with him leaving the Skull of Gul'dan in hand. But yes, now he's in a situation where he's frozen. It means the Glavebound is just a 6/4. I-Beam is not active at the cheaper cost. However, that might not be a problem for him this turn. He might just be happy to go ahead and throw down a 3-mana I-Beam depending on what he does draw. Or this is the turn where he decides to Skull.
It's not too bad. I do think this is going to be a Skull turn no matter what, and he can always, coin the I-Beam out, which doesn't feel great, but will deal with that 4/3 nicely, and hopefully, Mike will have enough damage going the other way next turn to put himself in a better spot.
And he does pick up the Frozen Shadow Weaver, which he can use to counter that Shadow Weaver. He might very well need, or he's going to use the I-Beam instead. That's fine to go ahead and clear that up, heal.
Okay.
And he stays out of range this way.
Yeah, and he can still play these cards. Altruist as a pickup feels very strong here.
I feel like you want to put that on the top of your deck, knowing that you've got a couple cheap cards sitting right on the front of your hand there. He could potentially have close to lethal.
Yes, especially I think Altruist has to be the pick here. Things might be a little bit awkward. It would be nice if he didn't have that cane and could just rip the second slice, but even with, Altruist, anything that he plays next turn, or anything that he topped out, and then, the 3 cards immediately to the left.
Yeah, let's think about this for a second. He plays Cane, that's 3 damage. He plays Second Slice, that's 4 damage. The 3 cards on the right, Battlefiend, Frozen Shadow Weaver, and Beaming Sidekick is 5 damage now. He's pumped his weapon up to 4, so that's 9. Hero Power is 10. And then the Watcher so he can get Tyfoon down to 13 next turn. And freeze a thing, and just in general, I think he would have... You had a thought? Well, he's not... now we know that, obviously, Frozen Shadow Weaver is going to stop a lot of that damage, but the thought was nice.
Yeah, this is still going to be a pretty explosive turn from Mike, so yeah, we'll see what he opts to do here, I guess.
I think the important thing now, Altruist is important because it kills that 4/3, which again continues to threaten you, and I think has to probably be the play. Because at this point you're dead to that 4/3 hitting face, a Soulfire, and a Nether Breath, or 2 Soulfires with the hopes that the Soulfire does not discard the other Soulfire. So there are a lot of ways you die. Especially in a situation here where Tyfoon has been churning through a lot of his deck and has a free tap. Well, he taps for 2, but he gets a free card out of it, so effectively would make the Nether Breath draw canceled out. He's just looking for that ways to end this game at this point, and Mike needs to be thinking, how do I stay alive while also continuing to push some damage?
And it looks like he doesn't want to go for the Altruist here, just going for Shadow Reaver instead, which... Oh no! I did not expect at all. I was going to say, going all out on Altruist, and then that's the second Shadow Reaver from Tyfoon. Presumably, you'll be able to hit with Warglaze and get the Adept next turn. That could very easily be lethal, but going for this very slow option just gives your opponent more chances to draw into things like Mallet.
Oh my goodness!
See Tyfoon.
You Beetlejuiced him.
That is incredible. Okay.
So Mortal Coil first to get rid of the 4/3 and see what you draw. Twisting Nether. That's fine. Nether Breath for 9. This effectively ends the game here. You're not dead yet.
Oh man,
The
yeah.
plot twist could make it so.
Plot twist, just a Soulfire, and that locks this game up.
Or
And there it
Netherwing.
is, the first card off the top.
Say Netherwing, if it's active, he could style on him that way. But
why not both?
Well, mostly because you can't use both unless you.
Well, I mean, you could use either. You could use either.
Soulfire on your. Well, so you can use Soulfire as BM on one of your own minions, but then if it discards the Crazed Netherwing, you are sad.
Yeah, but wow. Okay, so I guess it wouldn't have even mattered what Mike did that last game because that Malygos draw with the plot twist just ended up just doing so much for Tyfoon there. But yeah, that ties it up at 1-1.
And a better player than I wins the Warlock versus Demon Hunter match, as I expected would happen. So very instructive for me. I appreciate. We're not Schoolstone, but everyone can learn something from watching matches. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think we're going to see Demon Hunter get a win this game for the first time tonight.
That's a lot of confidence, Donde.
Just 100%.
I will say probably. Demon Hunter will probably win this game. Let's say that. I'm going to hedge my bets.
We just see perpetual ties. They're here forever.
Yeah. We talked about before this match that this might end up coming down to who can get a win with their quest. Tyfoon already has that out of the way. In fact, his first win coming with that Warlock. So he's in a prime spot here. This Demon Hunter, pretty similar deck lists between these two players, so I don't know if anyone quite has the edge here, but I'm not sure if this was not exactly the mirror that I was thinking would be important in this game. Coming into it, I thought that would be the Quest Warlock one, but we're not going to see that mirror this.
So they trade blows in the first turn here, neither of them having an explosive start. Both have Satyrs, and Tyfoon has the Umberwing to activate that Satyr next turn. Mike has a coin, a Satyr, plus a Twin Slice if he wants to use it this turn. So it seems like in this matchup you don't want to necessarily be the first person to play your Satyr. You want to be the second person to play your Satyr in clearing what your opponent put out. And then somehow protect yours in a way that it possibly lives at least a turn. I mean, it's very unlikely. The Satyr never really lives past one turn.
That's but at least like force your opponent to respond to them and put them on the back foot.
Exactly.
And it seems like Mike is going to be able to do that now. He'll have to use his coin to fully deal with the Satyr. But that's not.
I mean, if he really wanted to, he could have just I-beamed the 4/2 Satyr and said, whatever. But that does continue to allow Tyfoon to play more things on the board unchecked. And as a Demon Hunter, you don't want your opponent to have board, really ever, but as infrequently as possible.
Yeah. And I do think it's relevant to note that if Mike had not used the Twin Slice on that 1/1 on his turn 2, he could have possibly gone for a Twin Slice plus Second Slice plus Satyr this turn, and then coined out this on his 4/2 to make it a little harder to kill. But Tyfoon is going to get a pretty easy clear here with the Guardian Og Merchant. Now he maybe he can just Chaos Strike and finish off this 2/2.
Yep, and as we're saying, that does leave Tyfoon with the board. And Mike V with few good options at this point to claw his way back to the board and then play something on board himself. I guess the next turn he can Satyr and then clear one minion if he wants to, but that's not great.
Yeah.
I think you'd probably want to wait one more turn and try to beaming sidekick the Satyr. No, he's just going to go ahead and kick it out there now.
He can trade the 2/2 in, and having the 2 health minion against your opponent with no, it in theory it makes it difficult to deal with. Tyfoon does have the I-beam here, and
yeah,
that
I think,
Twin Slice pickup though, okay.
Yeah, that becomes an altruist turn right there, and I think that's the difference between a lot of players and and the great players who. You don't have to use Altruist for 6 cards. You can use him for a couple, put him out there, do some damage.
Yep, and I mean, yeah, Tyfoon didn't even get the most value in clearing his opponent's board. He had the I-Beam already, so this was really just clearing off a 2-2, but he's able to set his opponent to 13, get the Altruist on board, which has to be dealt with, and he has Metamorphosis and Adept in hand, which is going to make it, I think, pretty easy to finish off his opponent in the next 2 or
Yeah, Typhoon really sensed that he had the initiative and he took control. We're going to see the attack with the Glaive Mound come down. And yes, Metamorphosis does answer it, but that's one turn where you're spending clearing your opponent's board and not doing anything for yourself yet again. Not with the Demon Hunter. Oh, never mind. Glaive Mound.
Sounds a nice answer, yeah.
Possibly the perfect draw in this situation for Mike.
I think so. Oh, I think that's the best thing that Mike could have had, but Tyfoon is still very much in the driver's seat because he's going to be able to Hero Power, hit face, then Metamorphosis, and hit his opponent for 5, and just set up lethal for next. Really no recourse from Mike at all.
Quite honestly, he does not care that 6/4 is on board in any way.
Yeah.
Really, the only way he would not die here would be if Mike draws I-Beam, which is
has to be the second I-Beam.
Yeah. So 1 in 20 to live, and Mike does not find it.
Nope. Unfortunately, Shadow Reaver will not work at preventing the hero power. Mike is going to go for the Metamorphosis of his own and does not honorably kill himself. He'll let Tyfoon deal the finishing.
Now I get to say the magic words. Demon Hunter takes game 3. As I predicted. Incredible call.
Big bucks.
And now we're looking at, as we talked about, Due Process took game 1 in Series 1, and then Tap Last took the next 3. Typhoon on the verge of doing the same thing.
Yep, and Mike, I presume, will stay on the Hunter here against Typhoon's only remaining deck, Highland. Even if he wins that, then Mike will be faced with the task of getting a win with his Quest Warlock against the Highland, which, as we saw from the stats, is a pretty uphill climb. It's about a 30% matchup for him. But again, I would assume that he goes with the Demon Hunter here, which is going to be slightly.
And into game 4 we go. Demon Hunter versus Hunter it is.
Makes sense. Quick mulligan from Mike V, getting the Satyr and Umberwing and Sightless Watcher, keeping all 3 of those and picking up a 1-drop, which is exactly what you want to see. Really the only thing he was missing from the exact hand that you want against Highlander Hunters. So shaping up to be pretty good for Mike.
And Typhoon plays the tracking on turn 1 and makes me the saddest person on the planet because he threw away the Grand Slam, which means we will never see it this game unless he loses. So now I'm kind of rooting for Mike openly so we can see the Grand Slam finish off this series.
I would like to see it, and I think that there's a much better chance that we do see it in the Quest Warlock game. So we'll see. As for now, though, not the hand that he wants. Even with tracking, picking up that Sharpshooter, it just doesn't feel great to play the 1/3 and do nothing here. So he's just going to Hero Power, maybe go Sharpshooter, Hero Power next turn.
Yeah, Sharpshooter, Hero Power on a to counter a Satyr is a great thing, but it does not allow you to really do much of anything else, of course, and then that Battle Fiend is going to continue to run unchecked. So we'll see. Typhoon's got options now with the Zigzor coming down.
Yeah, Zigzor is not bad, and Mike probably will choose to just go for the Satyr here, but he's going to be able to take some pretty good value trades, make a really wide board, or he can just he's just going to hit face and trade the Battle Fiend. It makes sense.
I didn't know if he was going to utilize the 2 1/1s to do it. He opted to use the Battle Fiend instead.
I like this. I assume that Typhoon is still running Unleash the Hounds. I don't think there's any world where that gets cut. Not great against Unleash, but I mean, despite that, it's not even that bad against Unleash. Overall, going wide is, I think, generally going to be the strategy against Hunter.
He's got Zephyrus in hand, but that doesn't really do anything right now that
Mm.
I know of to clear a board of this size.
No, I mean, he would think of his cleave, and he'd have to get lucky with that. So I think he'll hold on to Zeph. Maybe next turn or on turn 6, he could maybe get some better board clears. But Zeph might end up just getting used for heal later.
Mike opting to continue to go wide. And interesting here now, he's got a couple options off the top.
Wow.
Knowing that you're getting low on cards, is Skull of Gul'dan the pick? I mean, does a Blazing Battle Mage really do you any good? I-Beam, I don't necessarily think is ideal here. I think Skull probably has to be the top deck pick.
It might be Skull. He does have Spectral Sight in hand. I honestly, I could see I-Beam as a pick, just as something, just a good cheap removal, and you're going to try to draw with Spectral and end the game quickly there. Ultimately, though, I think you're right. Skull is probably the best option. We, of course, can't see what he picked yet. We'll find out next turn, but yeah.
The main reason I liked it is because he can Spectral Sight into Sightless Watcher this next turn and have the Skull active on turn 6. So Lightning Storm now is a pick for Zephyrus, which will clear this board.
Yep. Nice pickup there. Wow, okay, so yeah, Mike thinking he could just end the game quickly with the Spectral, I think. But he can at least play out his whole hand here. His opponent is Ubu, and with Typhoon's current hand, the only thing he can do is play the Primordial Explorer.
Glaive-bound Adept, I think, was the pick there.
Yes, I think, yep. Confirmed it was the pick. And he picks up the Skull, yes! Okay, so Mike rewarded for picking that I-Beam, ended up being a nice clear on the Zeph, and he gets the Skull anyways.
And it won't be active this turn unless he picks up a Twin Slice, which I'm sure he doesn't want to just go ahead and use it that way. So we're probably looking at a Glaive-bound turn here.
Exactly. Glaive-bound to clear the 2-3, and I think, like you were saying earlier, you generally want to play your minions, play your aggressive things first before you Skull anyways. So I think Mike is really content to play the Adept now, and then he'll be able to.
Yeah, it feels like Skull in general, it's either I'm digging for lethal now or I'm trying to set up things for Altruists that are cheap, for a turn or two. It seems to be the better option for it. We're going to see Downtamed Brand come down right now.
Wow.
Tyfoon is looking for ways to stay alive, and killing that 6/4 is pretty important. And Twin Slice is the top deck pick. Not fantastic in this situation for Mike, but Skull of Gul'dan could afford him some sweet choices.
Not insane. Could be, just that 2 extra damage that Mike needs. So not horrible. I-Beam coming in.
I-Beam to kill that 8-2.
Yeah, that's solid. I think Tyfoon was considering, instead of the Bran, the Ooze plus Faceless Corruptor, which would have been a full clear, but the Dino Tamer Brand overall gets you more stats on the board. But as we're seeing this I-Beam, and this is a really smart move from Mike.
Very smart.
I did not even see that as an option initially, but yes. So yeah, I-Beam is always 1 mana when it is on the far left or on the far right. He gets the full extent of the discount by Skull by playing that Chaos Strike. Really heads up play there by Mike.
Yep, very good ordering, and I like that he saw that pretty quickly. He does pick up the Warglaive, so he's got some more damage with the Twin Slice. This Zixor, though, is going to... Without a top deck from Mike, it's not over, but that's not... that is enough. That's exactly enough,
lethal.
Yep, it's 1 more damage than the Warglaives can do, so yes, that is exactly...
Yeah, without that pickup, Tyfoon, I think, could have finished his opponent off with... Or no, would Alex have been enough? Alex would not have been enough, barely, but doesn't matter. Mike got the Adept and is going to take it to Game 5.
I'll say Alex would have likely been hitting Typhoon's face.
Yes,
instead,
true.
had he lived that turn. But no, we are going to go to Game 5 in this case, as Demon Hunter wins a 2nd straight match now, and it's going to be Hunter versus Warlock. So we haven't seen Mike play the Quest Warlock yet.
No, we haven't. we talked about that card that I definitely forgot the name of. That the 4-mana card, that Dark Portal. Thank you. I just want to see Dark Portal this game. That's all I'm looking for, and I think it is going to be pretty impactful. If he is able to get with 8 cards in hand.
So he does have Plot Twist right away, but he also has a Broodmother right away, which you don't want to see if you can avoid it till later in the game.
Yeah, Tyfoon, on the other hand, yes, picks up the Grand Slam.
Yes, he will not be able to tracking that away. It is in your hand. I expect you to use it.
Love it. The rest of his hand, we won't see that for a while, but the rest of his hand looking pretty strong with the Felmaw and the Zeph already. Choose to go for the Felmaw. He could maybe next turn choose to go for the Zeph and get Wild Growth, getting a Grand Slam out a turn earlier, which is always nice.
And now, second Plot Twist, not great when you've already got one in hand, since you're just going to throw it back anyway. We'll probably, imagine for Mike, see a tap Plot Twist next turn.
I would imagine so. Again, this hand is really not exactly what he wants. He's probably looking for Nether Breath, looking for a couple more reactive cards instead of these 6-drops and the Melee Ghost that just don't do anything against the aggressive start from Hunter.
Tyfoon will take the damage where he can get it. He did play tracking and take a Rotnest Drake. And alright, now, so Sense Demons can get you a 1/3 or 2/3 chance to draw no Broodmother. Well, I shouldn't say it's a straight 2/3. This is the math problem again. The first draw is 2/3 to draw Broodmother, and then, or 1/3 chance to draw Broodmother, and then the second draw becomes a 50-50 chance to draw Broodmother.
Right. Mike, instead of going for that, saving us from having to do that calculation, just goes for the Plot Twist. He doesn't tap first, so he's going to get, well, I guess he can still just tap now or go for the Artificer instead, but doesn't end up mattering too much.
And there's Face Maw as it pops out and immediately hits face, since there was no other option. But even if there was another option, it would hit face anyway, because that's what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, Tyfoon is, that Rotnest Drake, he picked it off tracking. Right now, it's not doing much because Mike isn't playing any minions, but I think that's still okay for Tyfoon to just be able to develop at his own pace. And just coining out this Corruptor, I like this a lot. This is really tough for Mike to deal with.
Yeah, it's a sizable board. I think Mike is probably not going to be able to get rid of everything here. Though, actually, a Moarg plus Rain of Fire, or I always call Dark Skies Rain of Fire. Moarg plus a Dark Skies will, let's see, if he does that, it'll hit for 16 total damage, which means, yeah, it'll kill everything.
Everything, yeah. This is, yeah, I think this is a full clear. If the Moarg dies first, I'm not entirely
No,
sure
it continues for double damage no matter what. Yep, it's always double damage.
Yeah. Okay, so Mike's seeing that, and I do think Tyfoon, the Corruptor was a good play. It plays around the Crazed Netherwing, but Mike has the perfect answer here.
A lot of glowing cards in Tyfoon's hand, but not a lot of them that you want to use. He'll probably just use Scale Rider here, or maybe the Frozen Shadow Weaver.
That Rotnest Drake still has no target at all, but yeah, just hero power and going for the Scale Rider over the Frozen Shadow Reaver. I think both are the Scale Rider's 2 damage is probably going face no matter what. And they're both 3 health. They'll both most likely die.
Trying to think here what the Rotnest Drake would most likely hit. And, Crazed Netherwing is probably that card, because if you do play it against an Abyssal, it's a 50-50 unless you have a way to take out the 2/2 behind the taunt before you play it. So this seems like probably as good a spot as any to play that Rotnest Drake.
Yep, I think he was really looking to either hit this or hit the Broodmother, but yeah, this is probably the best option he's going to get. So just play down that Rotnest, take out the 5/5, and then put Mike on the back seat again.
And just as a quest update, now that is 16 out of 20, so Mike is very close to completing the quest.
Wow.
Dark Skies, the top deck, he might just have to use it here to continue to stay alive, because if he lets that 6/5 hit and Typhoon's got kill command in hand, it's over.
I mean, at this point, I think any world where Typhoon has kill command is not one where he can win the game.
And he doesn't. Well, he also has Zephyrus in hand, which we know is just basically whatever you want it to be for damage. And right now, that Dark Skies is a very, very good decision here for Mike. And he's got Twisting Nether going into future turns as well.
Typhoon, yep, just going for the bully. And, even if that doesn't really prevent anything that Mike wanted to do, just being able to get 2 more damage to face. Wow. And, yeah, that's a full clear with Mortal Coil.
Yeah, Johnny on the spot there, picking up the Nether Breath.
Crazy.
No way for him to double it because the Artificer is still in his deck, the remaining one that is. But that's going to guarantee that he stays alive here through this, at least this next turn. But Stormhammer, and a very good pickup there for Typhoon to be able to continue to push damage. And he's going to punch him for 3, probably drop this. Oh, yeah, he's going to drop the Explorer first.
Slight out of order there, missing the Stormhammer, but doubt that will really end up coming into play this game. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to matter too much. I guess we'll find out. But he picks up second Dragon Queen, and there's Dark Portal.
Dark Portal, yes. I don't know if it's enough, but maybe he can play that and get Abyssal here.
I mean that, or you hope you draw the Broodmother, I suppose. He's already got Twisting Nether in hand, so there's nothing helping there.
Tough. The poisonous here means that, Abyssal or even Broodmother aren't going to be quite enough, because Typhoon's just going to be able to hit face with that Stormhammer and get the proc from Zeph.
So now he can tap and he can use the Dark Portal to draw. But he's just going to go ahead and drop the Broodmother and hope that's enough to live. And it's, unfortunately for him, it is not. With Zephyrus in hand, Zephyrus is a Fireball, a Lava Burst, a Savage Roar is not really necessary, but cool nonetheless.
Yeah, easy Fireball, and Typhoon taking the series 3.
So Typhoon did need that 5th game to get there, but he does get there. And defeats the Quest Warlock. And so not only does Tap Last win the week, they go ahead and they pick up even more points. So, as we mentioned, every point matters every week. So you might as well get them all if you can. We can go ahead and get Typhoon in here for a little chat.
Absolutely.
If he is up for it, that is. We don't like to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do, but we're very nice guys, and we would like to talk to Typhoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Typhoon played with us on Aeon last season, and then decided to offer his services to Tap Last, and it's going pretty well so far. I know
Tap Last is a very strong team.
Oh yes. Taking it. So that would be 4-1 in the overall matches against Due Process, which is kind of a team that a lot of people, I know I had them rated pretty low or ranked pretty low at the start of the season, but they've done pretty, got some good wins over teams like F2L. But with this loss, that's going to set them back pretty significantly, because all the teams are still fairly close together, just 4 or 5 weeks into the season.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really know exactly how the season's going to shake out when it's 11 weeks long and you do play everybody, which is nice for competitive balance, but we are still not even halfway there yet. Plenty of time for teams to turn around, and plenty of time for teams that have come out to a fast start to fade. We saw the Beard Boys last season, very, very strong in first place most of the season, didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's very possible.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
But I mean, there'll be better weeks ahead for Due Process, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Still have a very strong team. Sort of a bright spot is Boolean getting the 3-0 sweep over the last champ, who I think we all know is a pretty strong player already, and Boolean is going to be their 1 seed now moving forward. So nice to see him leading the charge, and I think they have better days ahead.
Just waiting for Tyfoon to see my message / respond. While we're waiting, might as well just run through some of these pro scores too. Washi Misha's up
Why
10 to
not?
7 right now. Probably not. You said, well, we can skip a certain pro score if you want. Uh, but Washi Misha's trying to move to 4-1 against the Beard Boys. 10 to 7, very close right now with Myanodon and ESO Glockta still to play, as well as Agernir and Honest Zabe. So this is interesting. Washi Misha's finally starting to show maybe a little bit of wear here in the 5th week.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was trying to catch up on chat, but I'll pick up there. What were you saying about Iso Glockta?
That he still has to play Myanodon this week, and Agernir still has to play Honest Zabe this week. So Beard Boys have two of their best players still remaining,
right.
And if they win both of those matches, they'll take out the Mishas.
Yeah, they do. I think they both have solid shots to win that. But I mean, looking at Zabe, we all know the Honest Zabe is a great. I think he recently was House Rivalries or some other prominent tournament. He ended up making it to the final. But sitting at 1-3 right now versus Agernir, who is I think an unknown in THL, someone I haven't heard of, but sitting at 3-0, I might give the 3-0 player an edge there instead. And Washiu only has to win one of these matches. I would bet that we see another win from them this week. They've only dropped one series so far, but yeah, they've been one of the nice surprises of this season. Just really coming out, firing on all cylinders, and have a really strong 10-point lead right now over the second place team.
Absolutely. And speaking of Bad to the Bone and 10-point leads, perfect segue. Bad to the Bone is up 10 points over State of the League. Yeah, you just really set it up, and I'm here to knock them all down. 12-2 lead for Bad to the Bone right now. So I'm going to say, on Heart Center this week, I stand pretty hard for State of the Blazes, and said that they were going to get the upset this week. And I was not correct, it would appear.
Two sweeps, too. The 3-2 win from Avi, but then Lotus and Egg.
In fairness, rough. 2 of the 3 players that I said were going to win for State of the Blazes have yet to play. So it may make my prediction not look as poor. But it's a good thing we don't keep track of the predictions on our center, because that would be bad for me.
A good thing, yeah. Let's see. Moving on down, we have got Everyday We Triflin' and For the Boys all tied up at 8-8, unless there have been any other matches since we started the cast. I don't think so.
So there is not.
Nice. Good to know that's up to date then. So really could be anyone's game here, and even see a tie at this point if they just trade matches for these last two.
Yeah, it's very possible. Got to imagine that the favorite in the 5 seed there is Sanguine over 9 Eyebrows, but Agent PWE versus Base could go either way. I think a lot of people were very much on the Base train. So I think that this very well could be a tie.
Yeah, I would give Base the edge there. Also biased because I lost to her last. So it makes me look a little bit better if I'm just only losing to the best players. But yeah, then I'm a little bit surprised. I would also give Sanguine the edge against 9 Eyebrows, but I'm surprised to see 9 Eyebrows sitting at 0-5. Last season, I think had a very strong record. I think they were like 6-3 in pro or something, and had maybe a poor record in another series like Hero, but did very well in pro. Was one of the better records there. So starting off 0-4, maybe they'll bring it back this week, because that was a little surprising.
Definitely. And speaking of 0-4, another segue, there are 2 players remaining in the Aeon versus Serenity match that are 0-4, looking for their first wins. But Serenity has the lead right now, 10-7 over our Aeon. I know that you have played so far. I have not played. I am playing tomorrow, and Ridiculous Hat, I believe, is also playing tomorrow. So we'll have to wait till Sunday to see how this one finishes up. But definitely had better aspirations for us this week. I don't know how you felt about our chances going into this one.
Yeah, I mean, Serenity right now I think has the fewest points of any. Definitely would have liked to do better in my match, but GC Turth is a great player. I know they've been grinding qualifiers for a while, and I think had some pretty relevant placements in some top tournaments, although I don't remember specifics, so I don't feel too bad about losing losing that one. But yeah, I still have faith that we'll be able to take out the win this week.
I have to imagine that you are not a Seinfeld fan because you passed blatantly over the Serenity Now reference to go Serenity
No,
right now.
I've never seen the show.
Unfortunate. Okay. Well, then it's going to be nearly impossible to explain it to you. But go ahead and Google it after.
Okay.
Go ahead and Google it after the show.
Yeah, I will.
I think there's one last match.
Yes, just F2L versus the Unknown, and F2L, despite slight name change, but basically the same team comp that we've seen from the past 2 seasons, when they have been the champs both 2 seasons, and off to sort of a rock. Only 1 win, 2 losses, and 1 tie. The only tie so far in Pro Series, and they're already down 2 matches. Both 1-3, so Ox and Snake and Ataxi are all going to have to pull it out if they want to get a win over the Unknown.
Yeah, this is. It's kind of interesting. F2L's 2 losses so far are 2 of the players who have been doing very well for them in Robobson and Berserk. And Snake and Itachi, yeah, they're going to have to find their first wins of the season if F2L is going to come back from this 2-loss start here this week. And I know that they are really, really not in a terrible spot with 53 points, but you don't want to fall further behind in a very tough series. So, yeah, this is interesting here. Unknown really needs this week as well. So they are off to a good start there with Desharmo and Catman getting those wins.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how, it's still pretty early in the season, so there isn't a huge amount of disparity between these teams, but only 4 teams make the playoffs in Pro. So, if you're not at the top early, it can be really, really difficult to end up clawing your way back into that last playoff spot. So they're definitely going to want to look to pull it out here. I mean, just looking at the standings now, right? 53 points for F2L. I believe Wash U is up at 79. So, I mean, that's where the ones. That is a lot of ground to cover in terms of getting up there before. But F2L, I believe 2 seasons ago, they barely sneaked in on tiebreakers or maybe by 1 point into the last playoff spot and were able to win the championship from there. So I think they have a chance to do it again. They just got to make playoffs, and Unknown also below F2L now, but they're to be in a good shot to win it this week, and they could sneak in as well. The Unknown has, I believe, made playoffs the past 2 seasons in Pro.
I don't think they made it last season, but I could be wrong.
Okay, actually, you might be right. Maybe they were in a win in the last season. Oh, I think they made it 2 seasons ago, and then also 3 seasons ago when we were in a beta season.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now hear me out. So Pro is supposed to follow GMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Format-wise. It's the 8 teams that don't make the playoffs. Relegation tournament. If they lose, they don't get to play Pro next season. That would be very heartbreaking. I don't think we can handle that.
I'm not sure if we can do that quite yet. I'm gonna interrupt for a second. I noticed that Tyfoon messaged me about an interview
he messaged
10
you
minutes ago.
I asked. I've been waiting here for a response.
I think he might not have gotten your message.
He just responded to me and said, "Oh shoot, just saw this."
Oh, okay, no, yeah, I'm seeing it. Okay, I guess. Well,
I was just about
we can still bring him
on
now.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Let me see if you can still look on. All right, Tyfoon is still down, so
yeah,
I can. Okay, cool.
We're just out here. Bill shouted out my ability to fill time, so I had to flex a little bit. See if we could fill that time till he responded.
I think that we got through. All of the Pro Series standings, right?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry, I didn't actually get a notification from your message. Mine's been super buggy all day.
That's okay. That's fine. We were just talking about the other matches in Pro while we waited for you, so no big deal. But congratulations on your win and Tap Last's win as well.
Thank you.
So first of all, we want to say that you're a jerk traitor who left our team. But seriously, so
it was a 1-year contract.
Yeah, you jumped ship, and I'm sure you made a ton of cash, which is real good for you. So I'm sure they signed you to a long-term deal.
Yeah, all things considered, I gotta thank the whole team of Aeon and all my fans, and but I think it was just the correct career move.
I'm picturing you standing with like a black and white photo, leaving the arena, like LeBron James style as he walked out of out of Quicken for the last for the second time.
For the last time.
We don't know if it's the last time. Who knows?
That's true. Yeah. Again. I mean, LeBron went back.
Yeah. Maybe you go for the three-peat. But I wanted to talk to you about Quest Warlock because one of the matchups that I was hoping to see was Warlock versus Demon Hunter, and we got that. You got the win, and that's a matchup that I've struggled with personally. So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on, as that game progressed, what was kind of the route that you took to win that one.
Well, I think from my experience, it tends to be Warlock favored, and one of the reasons why is because it just has so many convenient clears. Its stuff really lines up well against Demon Hunter. Like it has a lot of convenient clears. For example, just Moarg Rain of Fire clears pretty much all of their early threats. Netherwing clears everything they have. I mean, almost all their threats too. Mm-hmm. And when you play Moarg Netherbreath, that's like a Reno. So it actually becomes, unless you draw very poorly, it's like you have a toolkit that's almost equipped to just handle Demon Hunter's pressure throughout the game. So I think it's really a matter of digging through your draws and clears, and then finding the heals. Which, because it runs Sense Demons, you already have one half of that healing combo guaranteed.
It's very true. And by the way, this is how I avoid paying for Hearthstone coaching. I ask the great players what they do correctly, and then I don't have to pay for anything. I ask you questions and I subscribe to Meaty on Twitter. That's it.
That's all.
I follow him on Twitter too.
That's all. That's all.
Meaty has been putting out some great content recently.
But so Tap Last as a whole, you guys obviously did very well this week. This was against a team, Due Process, that was playing very well as well. They were up in the standings, very close to you, and you really just came and just shut them down this week. Do you feel like you knew that this was the result that was going to happen coming into this week, or did you expect this to be a bit of a closer match than it ended up being?
Well, I mean, you can never say for sure because there's a lot of really talented teams in Pro, especially this season. I know a lot of people didn't rank Due Process very high going into the season, but they've really been surging so far. So I'd say we definitely didn't take them lightly.
As I would expect. Markshire, you got any questions for Tyfoon?
I do. I guess my main question is, when you were prepping for this match, how likely did you think it was that your opponent would bring the exact same decks as you?
I did see that. It was almost card for card the same lineup. I actually had to double check to see if I didn't click my list twice.
Yeah, I was like, before the match and then even during, I was just like looking at both lists, and we were able to find like one or two cards that were like different and like, okay, so this is interesting. Maybe, this could potentially make the difference. But I thought that was really interesting to see.
Yeah, so I think it was like he ran like a Sightless Watcher instead of a Guardian Og Merchant or something.
Mm-hmm. It was that, and then I think like a couple secrets in the.
Oh yeah, because I don't run the secret version.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see. And I guess after you saw that, did that change anything about kind of like your mindset going into it, or what you thought about Q Order?
I was just like, I just thought it was really interesting because we both decided that those were the 4 best decks. Because I don't get the feeling that either of us were hard targeting each other. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I guess like it's all those decks have been showing pretty strongly in GMs recently. So I think it definitely makes sense that we came to the conclusion that those 4 decks were really good, and especially Bomb Warrior. Like Bomb Warrior has been doing extremely well on ladder recently.
Oh yeah, Bomb. I mean, Warrior as a whole, but especially Bomb Warrior has been huge. And I'm a little bit sad that we didn't get the chance to see it tonight. Any of these matches, both you and Mike made the right call, making that your ban for both of them.
Yeah, I did not want to play against Bomb Warrior,
Yeah.
especially given my lineup. I'm pretty sure it beats everything else I have.
Well, I'm a big fan of Bomb Warrior myself. I will toot my own horn and say that I've been talking about it for weeks. You can ask for Bobson. He knows for sure. But it's it was kind of a bummer. I did want to see it tonight just because it is a fun deck to watch. But I can understand the bans.
It's a little too fun.
A little too fun. A little too fun for competition. Yeah, too fun.
Exactly.
Don't want to have fun on stream. That's not what we're here for. Speaking of not having fun on stream, the guy who throws away in a Grand Slam in the tracking. That's all I wanted out of that match tonight. That's all I wanted. You didn't let me have it.
I was trying to, but we didn't get to turn 10 on the last game, unfortunately. I would have played it 100% if we got to turn 10.
Okay, if you saying that, I trust you. I believe you when you say that, so that's fine. I can sleep tonight knowing that. I was going to be up all night playing Highlander Hunter till I got to the Grand Slam. So that's all I got. Tyfoon, I'll give you the floor. Anything you want to say before we head out?
Cool. Not really, but I just want to ask, what was your favorite moment of the match?
My favorite moment of the match.
I guess both of you.
So I like that I called the Demon Hunter win in Game 3.
Ooh. For me, it might have been. I don't know. It could have been when you top decked Malagos, because I think I called that too. Sort of a theme with our favorite.
You absolutely
moments,
called that. Well, mine was a joke because I called the Demon Hunter win in a mirror.
Oh yeah, okay, nice one.
But yes, you absolutely called the Malagos top deck.
Yeah, I think top decking Malagos with the upgraded hero power is one of the best feelings with that deck.
Oh, it feels great. Absolutely. All right, then. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight, Tyfoon, and allowing us to stream your match. Congratulations to you and all of Tap Last 103. Yeah,
thanks for casting.
Yeah, always happy to cast. Markshire, thank you for joining me as well. Always fun to have you on the desk here, even if it's once a season.
Yeah, and thank you, Donde, for opping and for having me as a fellow caster. Always a pleasure.
Well, I will let you all know that we'll be back. Myself and Markshire, not us, back tomorrow, but Saku will be back tomorrow with 2 matches starting at 8 p.m. 1 Legacy, 1 Hero. MMI versus Noglocko at 8, and then Diamond versus the Big Ted at 9. So Legacy, then Hero. So please feel free to tune in there. He actually might need a new co-caster. I think Brushy Tuna is no longer available to cast. So we'll be seeing who will cast with him, but those will be the matches tomorrow. So make sure to tune in. Other than that, we will again have our shows on Monday through Wednesday. Wildin' Out, Saloon, Hearth Center, and then Tavern Talk on Thursday. Always forget about them. So make sure to tune back in, something every night of the week. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and please remember to subscribe if you are able to. It helps us continue to provide even better content to you, prize pools for our tournaments, and it just makes us like you all that much more because you're very kind. So make sure to do that. Turn on subscribe or turn on notifications. You can turn on subscribe too, but notifications as well to know when we're going live. And if you have Amazon Prime, it is free. So thanks for joining us tonight. Best of luck in your matches the rest of the week, and we will see you next week. Have a good night.